By typing Super Mario 64 into Google, the first results will almost always be related to some conspiracy theory, creepypasta, or new horror project about the game itself. This game's status within the popular culture zeitgeist is awash with all manner of rumours, sightings, and urban legends. Now, this phenomenon is not exclusive to this one title, but Super Mario 64 is undoubtedly at the epicentre of this trend of the haunted video game or cursed lost media. So the question is, what is it that has caused people to seek the extraordinary and create new horrors within this video game from 1996? Whilst conspiracies and rumours have surrounded Super Mario 64 since its launch, it's reasonable to believe that the explosion creating an abundance of cursed content really began in earnest with the sudden popularity of the iceberg genre of social media posts that quickly began doing the rounds amongst different discussion forums and social media boards, in particular the now infamous Super Mario 64 iceberg. But rather than focusing on modern discoveries and elaborations of the source material, I'd first like to go back to where this all started, not long after the game's release on the 23rd of June 1996, and cover a foundational conspiracy theory that really helped breathe life into the unique status within the popular culture niche that the game occupies. Probably the oldest and most well-known of the Super Mario 64 conspiracies, so I won't spend too long on it. El is Real 2401 is certainly the oldest of the player-generated mysteries within Super Mario 64 that gave it the reputation that it has today. This one compressed texture was the crucible for much of what was to come. Google Trends shows us that the topic was even more popular in the early 2000s as it is today, and the myth goes as far back as soon after the game's release, as the prevalence of El is Real 2401 was so widespread, even after a couple of years after the game's release, that the magazine Nintendo Power referenced it in their April 1998 volume. The magazine promised to reveal a special code on page 128. The magazine only has 106 pages. This texture left the door open for interpretation and for imagination to run wild. It was in an obscure enough place within the hub world, and yet also drew enough attention that it almost seemed like an intentional welcoming of speculation. It was eerie, mysterious, and most of all, fun to speculate about, and the enjoyability of speculating about such things with friends that were inherently nebulous laid the groundwork for more theories to expand beyond the search for the supposed lost media and into the realm of horror. When people returned to Super Mario 64 years later, it was this sensation and experience that they felt nostalgic for. So it's no surprise that creepypastas and new conspiracies alike began to emerge in the way that they did. The idea that every copy of Super Mario 64 was personalised spread late into the game's life, likely because it really helps to sell the idea that even if you can't find Luigi, access an overpowered cheat you heard about, or was stalked by an apparition of Wario, then it's still possible that someone else has had those experiences. They could all still be real. It lent credence to the supposed unusual experiences of others, be them fictitious or otherwise. It wasn't until the rise in popularity of analog horror, a genre of amateur-made web series that weaponized people's nostalgia for times gone by, that Super Mario 64 began to enjoy a renaissance of sorts, with new, mostly horror-oriented content being created that presented footage that was intentionally edited to appear degraded, or as if it was captured on a CRT-style television. This idea of using nostalgia almost as a focal lens for feelings of uncanniness and liminal spaces has largely defined a large part of the discourse and media surrounding Super Mario 64 in recent years. That, and the rather ubiquitous presence that Super Mario occupies in the zeitgeist of video game culture, gives these stories and theories an incredibly broad appeal. So ultimately, what this all boils down to is what the self-proclaimed king of the internet, the creator of both the Wario apparition rumour and the every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalised rumour, has said on the topic. In his own words, he, quote, wanted to bring back the playground rumours of old, and how, when you Google these rumours, nothing popped up. It was spread entirely through 4chan threads or word of mouth, end quote. Super Mario 64 is experiencing the urban legend renaissance it is having now, because it had gone through a similar cycle early on in its life, and being a revolutionary video game in one of the largest gaming IPs ever makes it if not the, prime candidate for such a thing. That is all for tonight. You can expect your usually scheduled programming to resume in the coming weeks. Good night.